Hello, I'm ConnectIQ Alpha Monkey Nicolas Kral, and welcome to the ConnectIQ Tools Breakout. In this breakout, we're going to get a preview of the upcoming changes coming to ConnectIQ, including the ConnectIQ Store, the Visual Studio Code extension, ConnectIQ 4 Super Apps, the ConnectIQ 4 Graphics Pool, the ConnectIQ 4 Drawing System changes, and when all of it is rolling out. Let's start with the changes coming to the ConnectIQ Store. We're adding new categorizations to the store that you can use to recategorize your app. We will be changing the categories on the front page later this year with a goal of getting more of your content onto the front page. We have hundreds of watch faces under the digital and analog watch face categories, which buries a lot of wonderful watch faces from view. To fix this, we're adding the following categorizations. Simple for faces that keep it simple, stylish for faces that have focus on a decorative appearance, animal for faces featuring animals, nature for faces with floral or natural beauty, around the world for faces with places, and geek and retro for faces with more nerd appeal. For data fields, we are adding the following categorizations. Dashboards are for data fields that display multiple metrics on a single page. Gym is for indoor training metrics. Sensor and secondary display are for data fields that work with external sensors or displays. Finally, for device apps, we are adding categorizations for golf and strength training. Here are some other upcoming new features coming to the store. Make OAuth request will be moving from Connect to the ConnectIQ Store for most devices. If you use ConnectIQ's Make OAuth request, you will need to direct users to the ConnectIQ Store app instead of Connect. A number of apps have started using third-party payment solutions. For these apps, we are adding a decoration to the Store page and app tile that better communicates to the user that a payment is involved. If your app requires payment to function, you will be required to check this in your app details so it can be communicated upfront to the user. We will let you know more about these features on the ConnectIQ forums when they are nearing launch. Now let's discuss what I know you're all excited about, the Visual Studio Code extension. When ConnectIQ launched, we provided a plugin for Eclipse as our development environment. The Eclipse IDE is sophisticated at best and complicated at worst, to the point that Eclipse can be a barrier to entry for learning ConnectIQ. People can get lost because they downloaded the wrong version or can't find the perspective, so we decided it was time for a change. Visual Studio Code has become very popular and has a very extendable architecture. We are migrating all of our functionality to a new extension for Monkey C. A preview of the VS Code extension is now available. It includes SDK integration, project creation, Monkey C and Jungle editors, and manifest manipulation tools. The debugger and the app settings editor are not yet available but will be coming in a future release. Before installing the extension, first get the ConnectIQ SDK Manager from developer.garmin.com. Next, in VS Code, go to the Extension Marketplace and install the Garmin Monkey C extension. To configure the extension, go to File, Preferences, Extensions, and select the Monkey C extension. Finally, add the path to your developer key. Now you're ready to build. You can create a new project in Visual Studio Code using the command palette. Simply type New Project and then select ConnectIQ New Project from the options. Next, enter the name for your new project. Set the directory for your project using the file browser. Set the app type based on if you want to create a new watch face, data field, widget, app, or audio content provider. For the app type, select the project template you would like to use. Finally, set the minimum SDK level for your project. After you complete this step, the extension will create your project. When editing the project manifest, we have 3 commands in the command palette to help: edit products, edit permissions, and edit languages. Finally, you can always import projects by using Open Folder. Next, let's discuss Super Apps. This is the biggest change to device apps since ConnectIQ launched. Up until now, ConnectIQ has had 5 app types: watch faces, data fields, widgets, device apps, and audio content providers. But let's take a moment to look at widgets. Widgets provide a carousel of information to the user. The intent of widgets was to give developers a way to serve up information at a glance, but in practice they are somewhat confusing. There are advantages to widgets. Unlike apps, they are launchable during activities, and they can have glances, but they also have limits on their functionality and resources. Ultimately, it forces the developer to make a choice up front. Do I want this to be accessible to the user, or do I want it to have the full functionality of the device? This choice seems arbitrary. So, in ConnectIQ 4, widgets and apps are being merged. Device apps will be launchable at any time, including during an activity. Device apps will also be able to add a glance to the glance list. Finally, device apps will keep their top-tier access to system resources. During an activity, the user can return to the watch face and from there access the glance list. They can then use the glance to launch into the app. When they are done, they can return to the glance list and then back to the activity. In this new approach, there are times where your app can be killed in the background. When this happens, your app base on stop will be called with the parameter of save state mapped to true. If possible, persist your state into storage. When you are relaunched by the system, your onStart will have the parameter restore state mapped to true. Use that as an opportunity to restore the app back to its previous state. You might be concerned about your existing widgets. Don't worry. If you build these for ConnectIQ 4 products, they will be converted to device apps by the build tools, but remain as widgets for ConnectIQ 3 and below products. Now let's talk about the graphics pool. ConnectIQ has a different memory heap budget for each device, and that budget can vary based on the app type being implemented. While straightforward, this can cause issues when making apps that use image resources. When your app launches, some of the heap will be used by your application code and data. But loading an image from resources can take a variable amount of space from the heap. How variable? Take a look at the size of a full screen buffer for these products. A full screen image on the Phoenix 3 could take 23 kilobytes, while on a Phoenix 6X it could take 3 times as much, or over 10 times as much on a Venue. So an app on one product that works fine could run out of memory on another product. This communicates the following message to developers. Use images at your own peril, or you know what, just don't use them. This is what's known as not a good look. In ConnectIQ 4, a new separate graphics pool will exist alongside the application heap. Your application heap will still be used for code, data, and objects. But when resources are loaded, they will populate the graphics pool. This is a good time to outline the major API change in ConnectIQ 4. In ConnectIQ 3, loading a resource returns the resource object, but in ConnectIQ 4, loading a resource returns a reference to the resource object. We've updated all APIs that take resources to take references as well, so this should be a mostly transparent change. If you load more than what is available into the graphics pool, it will purge resources in order to make room. But if you need that resource, it will lazily reload your resource back into the pool. Bitmaps, fonts, and buffered bitmaps will now switch from loading into the application heap to loading into the graphics pool. But let's talk about buffered bitmaps for just a second. The good news is that they won't cost against your heap. The bad news is that the API is slightly different than in ConnectIQ 3, including that a buffered bitmap can be freed between draw calls. The message we're sending to you is use buffered bitmaps at your own peril, or, you know, just don't use them. JK, LOL. Like I was saying, buffered bitmaps now can be freed underneath you. Getting a strong reference to the buffered bitmap object will also lock it in the graphics pool and prevent it from being freed. But if the graphics pool can't free memory, it could cause an out of graphics pool exception if you try to load more into it. Also, you can use isRestored on the reference object to see if it has been freed since the last draw call. If that happens, refresh the bitmap before calling draw bitmap. Here are some tips for better performance. The graphics pool will lazily load in free resources, but for optimum performance, load the resources for your view on show and free them in on hide. Also, use buffered bitmaps for short-lived temporary draw buffers. Finally, try to create new buffered bitmaps rather than keeping long-lived ones around. Now let's look at some of the new drawing tools coming to ConnectIQ 4. While Edge products supported alpha blending of bitmaps, wearables up until now have only supported 1-bit transparency. In ConnectIQ 4, all products will have alpha transparency for both bitmaps and draw primitives. Draw primitives as well will support gradient fills. The system will also allow bitmap stretching at runtime. Finally, the resource compiler will support a lossy bitmap format with alpha support to allow integration of high-quality graphics with less impact to the PRG size. We're also updating the resource compiler. Currently, supporting multiple resolutions requires cutting lots of different bitmap sizes. We are adding the ability for assets to be scaled in the layout files. Images can be scaled relative to their image size or the screen size. This will allow you to use a single high-resolution asset for multiple layouts. We are also adding support for SVG assets. SVGs will be converted to bitmap assets on import. Finally, the resource compiler will now be able to use a single image asset as an icon and automatically scale it to different device resource sizes. You can still tailor your icon per device if you choose to do so. So let's talk about when this is all going to be available. The VS Code extension is available today. As we will talk about in the next breakout, Monkey Types is coming soon. Finally, the drawing updates will be coming to new products in 2021. In conclusion, get the Visual Studio Code extension today. Take advantage of the new categories on the store. Keep an eye on the forums for upcoming changes to the store, and look for ConnectIQ 4 in 2021. We think you'll like it a lot.